Hi, I'm Will Buck, and I'm a freshman here at Emmaus, and I'm involved in the JV soccer team, and I'm also on the varsity football team as a kicker. So my tip for ninth graders would just be to learn how to effectively manage your time and eliminate distractions that might keep you from being successful in completing your homework, or spending more time with your family.
Welcome to this episode of the Ninth Grade Experience podcast. Here we're back to talking to some students. We've done a lot of stuff around the school, but we're trying to get more student voices on here. And today's guest is kind of an interesting case. It's one of the first students that's ever reached out to me personally that wanted to be a part of the podcast. So we're bringing him on today, and he actually has ideas to be on a little bit more. So we might be seeing more of this guy in the future. So this is Will Buck from the class of 2025. So Will, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So you're going to learn a lot about Will's story here. He actually has a couple interesting things going on right now in the fall. He has a pretty intense academic schedule as well, too. One that I've never seen in a freshman before, so it's kind of interesting. But I'm going to let Will, here with our first question that we ask any new guest to the show, describe your ninth grade experience. So it is near the end of the first marking period here in the first part of your freshman year. So what has it been like so far?
Yeah, so obviously it's been a huge adjustment moving into a bigger school with, I came from LMMS, and with all these new people from IRE, I get to meet a lot of new people, and I also get to see a lot of my friends that I haven't seen for a while, that all ended up going to IRE. So it's been a whole lot of fun. Juggling schoolwork and football and soccer has been challenging at times, but overall I've really been enjoying it.
So you mentioned in your, talking about yourself that you're involved right now in not one but two interscholastic sports, which is a rarity. You were a JV soccer player this past year and a varsity football player. So you're one of the kickers on the football team, and you play JV soccer. So obviously we're going to get into talking about that and the balance and all that goes with it. So we're recording this on Wednesday, so you're going to be playing in your first district playoff game this upcoming week. We learned in a kind of conversation beforehand that you are the kickoff specialist. So what do you think it's going to feel like if the Emmaus is kicking off to start the game on Friday, you're walking out there, first district playoff game, and you're going to be kicking there as a freshman. So what do you think that experience is going to be like, and what's it been like being on the varsity football team this year?
So we try to go into every game with the same mentality, and that mentality is to bring home the win. And so we know what we have to do going into that game. We have to get that win, and it'll be a good game for sure. We've played Nazareth before, and I think we won 35-7. So that'll be a challenging game because it'll be away at Nazareth, and we'll need as many people as we can get at that game to fill up that student section.
So you specialize in kickoff. So I know it's funny, when my wife and I will watch football, whether it's an Emmaus game or something, she always talks about the kickers and the pressure that's on the kickers. So now you're not kicking field goals or extra points yet. There are other players that do that. But being the person that is going to be the kickoff specialist, what goes through your mind, or when you're getting ready to go up for the kick, at the start of a game or after a touchdown or whatever, what are you actually thinking about? And is it nerve-wracking to be that kicker in that situation?
So I would say it is at times. It can get a little bit, you can think about it too much, but I'm a goalie in soccer, and so I'm used to this kind of pressure, and so I'm used to having everybody with their eyes on me, and you have to learn to enjoy it and embrace kind of the nerves, and just know that I just remind myself when I'm going out onto that field, I've done this a million times. I just do it how I do every time, and so that's kind of how I approach it.
So before this year, how much football had you played?
I had pretty much never played football, and I really couldn't have imagined myself playing any kind of football as a soccer player. because it just seemed like such a bizarre sport. Because I was a soccer player, I had played soccer my entire life. I didn't understand the rules of football. I still don't. Um, but now that I'm a part of it, it's been a lot of fun. So
So how did you wind up on the football team? So you're obviously in the fall. You tried out for soccer. You made JV soccer, and how did football come into the equation at all?
so last spring, I think it was probably March or April when we were all back in person, out of hybrid, and in the middle school, everybody was back in, that chose to be. And one of the sixth grade teachers is Mr. Virilli, who is, I think he's the O-line coach for the varsity football team. He said, "Hey, you should sign up for football." And so I kind of laughed at him being a soccer player. He didn't realize how terrible I would probably be as a normal football player. And I gave it a little thought, and I thought maybe I could try out being a kicker. And so that's what I did. And in July, I had a training session with with a kicking coach who specialized in coaching kickers, and it turned out it was actually pretty fun. So that's how it happened.
Now it's interesting. We've had like quite a good run here of kickers at Emmaus. I know it was a couple of years ago. I forget the kid's name off the top of my head, but he actually was a walk-on at Penn State. So we have had some pretty successful kickers here. So we'll get into playing JV soccer too, but like, is football something you're going to continue along with, or is it something that you're trying now and maybe you're like, it was okay, but maybe you're not going to keep doing it? Like, what's your impression of football now that you've been in it for the full season?
I've really enjoyed it. And of course, I've also enjoyed soccer, having played for however long I have. And I really just I'm thinking about where I'm going to go from here. But right now, I'm just trying to enjoy both of them.
So how is it balancing during the course of the year? We were talking previously about sometimes you had to like go from one directly to the other. But when you're trying to balance two sports at the same time, like what did that actually, like the logistics of that look like? So I'm sure you were spending time at both practices. There are games and they might be at different times. So what was your schedule like in the fall, and how were you able to balance it for like maybe people that are listening from the middle school that want to try both, or like other students that maybe could try both things? So how were you able to keep it all straight?
I really do have to thank the coaches because they've been really understanding, and they've been a huge help to me. And so most of the time with football, it was challenging to make it to football and soccer. There were a couple of times that I went from soccer practice to football practice, or from football practice to soccer practice. And I would go to football probably twice a week plus a game. And of course with soccer, practicing every day. That was a really busy schedule. And even with football now, with no JV soccer, it's still a pretty packed schedule.
Yeah, so our varsity soccer team just last night qualified. They're in the finals of the district. So you said you'll be going out to that game, but now JV's kind of done, so you're not part of that right now. But it must have just been like, we're transitioning back to being in school. You were there, at LMMS last year at the end of the school year. So you kind of had a little bit of time, but now we're like back into the normalcy of school. So you're transitioning to that. You're playing two sports, one at the varsity level, one at the JV level. Like, I can't imagine just like how exhausted you were. I'm sure like when you eventually got home, and we're going to talk about your schedule, your academic schedule in a little bit here, but between all of those different things, I'm sure like you were just kind of exhausted from August, whenever, to recently.
Yeah, it was definitely an adjustment going from summer to having to play football and soccer and school all in the same days.
So you've been able to be successful in both of the, your sports. So you made it through the JV season. I'm assuming you'll try out for JV or varsity next year, kind of keeping along with that soccer. As you said, you've been playing that since basically you've you can remember back as far, so I'm sure you'll stay with that. And your academics, I said to you when I saw your schedule, like I took a look, like kind of to learn a little bit about you. I've never seen such a challenging freshman schedule. You're taking like a pre-calculus, an honors pre-calculus class. You're taking, an honors STEM level physics class. All these classes across the board. So what has it been like for you to balance all the athletics and then with a really challenging academic load as well too?
Something I've been learning this fall is time management, and how do you manage the time that you have to work. And so there have definitely been some nights that I was up till midnight or later because I was not able to manage my time well. But other times, and most of the time, it's just been saving the fun that I have for after I complete my homework and whatever else I have to do. And so it's actually been, while on paper it looks very very challenging, I've been able to be helped by my parents a lot, and it's been, like I said earlier, it's been an adjustment, but now that I've adjusted, it just seems like, yeah, this is what school is.
So can you be like a little bit, so you talked about time management, and it's interesting. We've had, in the 4 seasons of doing the podcast, we've had varsity athletes on, and they always talk about that time management piece, like being able to, fit the practices in with the games, with all the other stuff. So can you just give a little bit of specifics? Like, what are some of the things that you've done personally to be able to like manage your time, that maybe if students are listening that they could implement, or parents of people coming up, what they could possibly implement, like with your time management strategies?
Yeah, so I've definitely had to limit the amount of time that I spend on my phone, and just relaxing at home, and getting to work right after school on homework has been big. Because I haven't had a whole lot of time at night at home. So I would just say eliminating distractions, which is usually stuff on my phone, and making the most of the time that I have at night to complete my homework.
So any other tips or strategies that you can give to like ninth graders or upcoming ninth graders about making that transition from middle school to high school? Like, I'm sure you took challenging classes in the middle school. What did you learn on your own? Now, obviously you talked about time management this year, but what are some other things that you've had to kind of either learn, either through parents or school, or figure out on your own about like making that transition from middle school to high school?
Well, I was definitely pretty intimidated walking into the building on orientation day, but now that you're in the building, I would say to 8th graders, don't be intimidated by the building. Obviously, take it seriously, but it will be a transition, but it won't be a terrible one, and it's a whole lot of fun so far. So.
And it's nice, not nice, but like comforting to hear like that somebody who was like on 2 sports, like you kind of came in with knowing people, somebody who's academically like doing really well too, talk about being nervous. Now, we're sitting down here, if you're watching on YouTube or if you're listening, obviously you can't see, but Will is a pretty tall guy. How tall are you?
I think 6'3".
So he's not like a little, it's the stereotypical little freshman coming in. So he's tall guy coming in, still, was still nervous about the transition, even though he fits like, it looks like he could be a sophomore, junior, or senior right now with like how tall he is. So again, it's like, every student, no matter what they have going on, is still working on making that transition when they come up from the middle school. So it's nice to hear that, you've figured out ways to like kind of overcome that and work through that transition, especially here early in the school year. So we have, the rest of the school year here. Now, obviously you're winding down with some of your sports, but is there anything else that you're looking to be involved with here at the high school for the remainder of the year?
With the ending of fall sports, I'll definitely have some more time for clubs. And so the clubs have been something that I've been interested in, and finally I'll be able to be a part of them. Some of my friends have been inviting me to clubs, and so the clubs are really what I'm excited about.
So you'll have a little bit more opportunity to explore that, so that'll be kind of interesting. Now, the one thing that you mentioned to me in your correspondence with me is that you want to be interested in doing more stuff with the podcast or a podcast. So we talked a little bit about this like beforehand. So Will is going to be one of the first people, he's reached out and wanted to be on the podcast and wants to kind of do his own. So Will and I are kind of talking about how we're going to do that at this point. Whether he's going to be a regular contributor to the ninth grade experience, or whether Will is going to have his own podcast that we'll talk about here in the beginnings of like the whatever we're going to call it. I'm not even going to tease a name in case we decide to call it something else. But it's interesting that Will is interested in podcasting. So what was it about podcasting that kind of piqued your curiosity, or why do you want to be a part of this thing we got going here?
When I saw the ninth grade experience originally, I was like, wow, that's a really great idea, because there's so many people with so many different interesting stories that I think a lot of people could relate to or find interesting. And so immediately just a million ideas popped into my head. And so that was really what interested me.
So Will and I talked about that, and the ideas that are there, and he's not exactly sure yet what he wants to focus on his show for, but he like has the human interest piece, he has the athletic piece, like he's doing academic stuff as well too. So as we kind of progress a little bit here, and we kind of figure out what Will wants to do as for a show, we'll obviously tell you if he's going to need some guests or if he wants to focus on other stuff, athletics. Like we're going to kind of delve into lots of different topics. But when you hear from me, I give you one perspective as a teacher and an advisor. But hopefully from Will will be able to give you more of a ninth grade student perspective in lots of different areas. So whether we bring him back regularly on the show, or hopefully he I told him he should start his own podcast, and then he can kind of keep it going past his ninth grade year. So that's one of the ways we're looking to grow the ninth grade experience as well too. So we'll kind of be on the lookout here for when we start getting these ideas out there. So if you're interested in being a part of the ninth grade experience, I know we've had some students reach out before, so maybe we could do it during a Hornet block or something like that, where we'll talk about how we can incorporate some more podcasting and get some more different voices on here and different experiences. So I'm excited to have Will on. He's he's going to be the first person in 4 seasons that wants to kind of break out and do his own show. So hopefully before the end of the 2021 calendar year, you'll hear whatever Will's going to call it. I don't know. Do you have any ideas yet?
I haven't any idea.
Who knows what it's going to be, if it's going to have his name on it or whatever, but we will definitely keep you posted with the developments there. So we're going to develop what he wants to do. So Will, anything else you want to share about your freshman year, or kind of where you see things going, or any words of wisdom to our freshmen that are out there?
I would just say obviously it's easy for me to say, and it's a little bit cliche sounding, but find something that you really enjoy and pursue it and work hard at it, and you might just be successful.
And you're a great example of that with all the different things you have going on. So Will, thank you so much for A, reaching out, and B, wanting to be a part of the ninth grade experience. And we look forward to featuring you in the future, and getting your voice out there as well too. So hopefully you'll encourage some more students that might want to be involved in this to kind of join up with us. So thanks a lot for joining us.
Thanks again for having me.